It was the year 2000 when I started to build my Wharram Tangaroa Mark IV Catamaran. After receiving the ply for the boat, for the build, I can't remember how many sheets, but I thought it might have been about 100. I set about laying sheets out on the floor and lofting the bulkheads and frames for the vessel. The shape of the keel was lofted onto the sheets on the floor, and then we cut out ply to make up the web of the keel beam. After that, the timbers were put on the sides for top and bottom of the keel, and we had a keel then all formed up. The bulkheads were then turned upside down and stood up, and then the keel was fitted into the tops of the bulkheads. The vessel is built upside down, and that's to allow to be able to sheet it. This picture is putting the stringers on and getting them all set up and glued on. The glue that we used was West System epoxy, and everything was glued and filleted. Another good view of how the keel fits into the bulkheads. The hulls were sheathed in 9mm ply, and then they were covered with cloth, with fiberglass cloth, and coated with West System. Several coats, sanding, lots of sanding, and putting more on, and sanding and impregnating the cloth and getting it all wetted out. Eventually we got to the point where we started to be able to build the cabins on the top, and continued with the interior, fitting out the interior. We're now probably 2 years down the track. The second hull was started and completed in a little bit less time than the first ones. This shot shows the hatch covers area, gluing up all the bits onto that. Some stage through the build you had to take the boat out of the shed and roll it over. This first shot's going back in, I think. We'd already rolled it over. I haven't got any shots of it rolling over, but laying around on the ground here you can see some tyres and bits and pieces, and we rolled it over with ropes, and my Toyota Land Cruiser just pulled it and just rolled the whole thing, and there was no problem. A few anxious moments, but not a problem. After the boats were completed, we made all the hatch covers and started forming up the cross beams. They were all done in the shed there, laminated together with, I forget now, I think it was about 6x1 timber. Just laminated these big beams. That took 4 months to do those 2 beams. The masts turned up. They were extruded in Grafton and finally got here. They're a round mast for the soft wing sail. It's now September 2004 and we're ready to launch. We dragged the hulls down to the beach on those trailers and set them up, put the beams on and bolted all the beams down through the day and waited for the tide to come in the night. Then she just floated off and away we went. It's pretty simple. Our sail rig is a gaff ketch rig, soft wing sail. It's the same as on the Tiki 38. Haneke from Wharram designed the sail rig to fit. The sails were made in Darwin. I just can't remember the name of the sail maker, but he done a damn good job of them. One of our first trips was to North Keppel Island with another friend of ours who owned a boat called Trifina. His name is Greg Floyd. You can see that on the right hand of the screen. A fair bit of those early years was spent on Zilsey Beach at Emu Park, south of Yeppoon in the central Queensland. It was tidal, obviously, and every tide she'd sit on the bottom and then float off. It was quite a good little anchorage. It was nice and safe when it was out of the southerly breeze. Wharram's Design ran a competition about stories on building Wharrams. We won it, and the prize was a set of plans of a Tiki 21. So we went about building that, and in our spare time, while we were building the Tangaroa, the story was Wharram Hunt. It's on their website. Our Wharram Tangaroa is powered by two 9.9 long shaft 4-stroke Yamaha outboards, and it pushed her along at about 10-12 knots, no problem whatsoever. Great to have the two motors there for manoeuvring. You can just shuffle one backwards and forwards and just about turn her on its own in her own axis. We had a little toilet inside as well, and a shower. Spent a lot of time on the Fitzroy River right up to the town reach of Rockhampton. She was moored up there near the bridge there for a few years, and we used to go down the river to campouts on the weekend with the boat club. Many a party was had on the boat club vessels. This one was nothing different than normal weekend away. The biggest problem with the Fitzroy River is when it goes into flood, this water hyacinth comes down and chokes up the river, and it's a really pest trying to get it off the boat. this is the western bank of the Fitzroy River. All those stones were laid by US Army personnel in the Second World War when they were stationed in Rockhampton. They had nothing to do, so they built the wall. We had a bird strike in the Wharram Creek near Keppel Sands. There was just bird dung from one end of this vessel to the other. I don't know what sort of birds they were, but by jingoes, they made a heck of a mess. Wharram Creek is a great place to get her up onto the sandbar and clean the bottom, clean the barnacles off and what have you, check the anti-fouling and do any other maintenance we needed to. And the ability to run up on a sandbank with a Wharram is just, it's really a handy thing to do. You can even just stick it on a beach somewhere, as long as you can get it off it. in 2009 I decided to sell Wriggles. A bloke called Tony bought her, and this was the last I saw her sailing down the Fitzroy River. When Tony got to Bundaberg, there was a big flood, and it broke away from the moorings and ended up down in the mangroves somewhere down the Burnett River. I believe Tony left the vessel and somebody else bought it. Now, what happened then is that many years later I was in Newcastle, and my father, who lives there, said, "I think I know where your boat is." And we went up to Morpeth on the Hunter River, and lo and behold, here is Wriggles up on the hard near the bridge at Morpeth on the Hunter River. I approached the guy that had a little honey sales and hay sales place just near the bridge, and he said the fellow had brought it down from Queensland and he was going to do it up, and this is the state she was in when I found her. The pods had broken off, or they weren't there anyway. Masts were all down. It wasn't in too bad a nick, but there was a bit of rot here and there and everywhere. But the crazy thing about it, when I went down below inside, the map that was on the table was of the Capricorn area, still sitting on the table, opened up, and a Capricorn area. It's like if the boat had just been shifted from central Queensland to New South Wales by the Martians. Really a eerie sort of setup. Anyway, I eventually found the guy who was doing this boat up, and he completed the restore, stuck it in the river, and the last I heard he was heading to Lake Macquarie, and I've never heard of the boat since, and I would like to know where she is.